You know, there are some stories you carry your whole life, not because you're proud of them, but because you can't ever speak them out loud. This is one of those stories. It's been years, and still, every time I think about it, it's like I'm right back in that moment. The air gets heavy, my hands get cold, and I wonder, what would have happened if I told someone? What would have happened if I hadn't? But I didn't, because it wasn't just about me. It was about my dad. And my dad, well, he was complicated. To the world, he was the quiet man with the kind smile, the one who never raised his voice, the one who fixed people's cars on weekends just because he could. He was the man who never forgot a birthday, who always paid his bills on time, who read the newspaper every morning like it was gospel. But at home, behind the curtains, it wasn't always like that. When I was around 8, I started noticing things. Little things, you know? Like how Mom would go quiet when Dad walked into the room, or how she'd flinch a little when he stood too close behind her, even though he never did anything. At least not then. And I'd ask myself, why is she so nervous? Why does the house get so tense when he's around? At first, I thought it was just me being a kid, overthinking things, making up stories in my head. But the older I got, the more I realized. Some stories write themselves, whether you want them to or not. One night, I think I was maybe 12, we were sitting at the dinner table. Dad, Mom, me, and my younger sister Emily. The usual noise of clinking forks and random conversation filled the room. And then, out of nowhere, Dad dropped his fork. It hit the floor with a loud clang, and he stared at it like it had personally offended him. And then, he snapped. Not violently, not loudly, just this quiet, terrifying fury. He stood up, picked up the fork, and said, "We don't eat like animals in this house." I'll never forget the way Emily froze mid-bite. She was only 8. She didn't understand. But I did. I looked at Mom. She wouldn't meet my eyes. That's when I knew something was wrong. Something big. But this isn't the part I can't tell. This part, this is the surface. The real secret, our secret, started years later. I was 17, almost a man, but not quite. You know that weird age where you think you've got life figured out, but deep down, you're just trying to keep it all together? That was me. By then, I'd learned how to stay quiet, how to read a room, how to be invisible when I needed to. Because when Dad was in one of his moods, invisibility was a kind of safety. But then something happened that made all that impossible. I came home from school one afternoon. Mom was in the kitchen making tea. Dad wasn't home yet. Emily was upstairs blasting music. And Mom, she looked tired. Not the kind of tired a nap can fix. The kind of tired that settles in your bones. I poured myself some juice, sat down at the table, and said, "You okay?" She hesitated. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Promise me," she said, "that no matter what happens, you'll always protect your sister." I blinked. "What do you mean?" But she just shook her head and walked out of the room. That night, I didn't sleep. The next day, everything felt off. It's hard to explain. Just this heavy silence, the kind that creeps into your chest and refuses to leave. And then it happened. I woke up to the sound of shouting. It was almost 2 a.m. I jumped out of bed, heart racing, and crept down the hallway. The door to my parents' room was open. Dad's voice, low, angry. Mom's voice, shaky, quiet. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard enough. "You think you can just walk away?" he said. "You think I don't know what you're doing?" And then, a crash. I ran in without thinking. Mom was on the floor, not hurt, but clearly scared. Dad was standing over her, fists clenched, breathing hard. I stepped between them. I don't know what gave me the strength. Maybe it was adrenaline. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was just 17 years of silence finally screaming to get out. I said, "That's enough." He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "This isn't your business," he said. "It is now," I replied. And for the first time, I saw it. Fear. In his eyes. That shook me. I didn't know he was capable of fear, but there it was. He stepped back, just slightly, and then he walked out. Didn't say another word. That was the night everything changed. We didn't talk about it the next day, or the next. But the air was different. Dad was quieter, colder. Mom kept herself busy. And Emily, she didn't even know what had happened. She just kept living in her little world. And I kept my promise. Weeks passed, then months. And then, Dad sat me down. It was a Sunday. We were in the garage. He was fixing something he didn't need to fix, and I was pretending to help. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "I'm leaving," he said, just like that. I didn't say anything at first. Then I asked, "Why?" And he just said, "It's time." I thought I'd feel relief. I thought I'd celebrate. But I didn't. Because even though he'd hurt us, he was still my dad. And when someone you love becomes someone you fear, it doesn't erase everything. It just complicates it. He left that night. No big fight. No drama. Just a bag over his shoulder and a car driving off into the dark. And now, the secret. You see, what no one knows, what can't be known, is that the night before he left, Dad came into my room. He stood in the doorway for a long time. I didn't know he was there until I heard him say, "You were right to stop me." I sat up. He looked tired, older than I'd ever seen him. And then he said, "There's things you don't know. Things I've done." I didn't respond. He kept going. "I made mistakes. I hurt people, not just your mom. Before that, before you were born." He paused, swallowed hard. "I never wanted to become my father," he said. "But somehow, I did." And then he said something I can never forget. He said, "You're not like me. Don't ever be like me." I wanted to ask what he meant, but I was frozen. He turned to leave. And just before he closed the door, he added, "There's one more thing." And then he told me something so dark, so deeply personal, that I can't repeat it here. Not because I don't want to, but because once it's spoken, it changes everything. It's the kind of thing that follows you, stains you, rewrites your memories of someone forever. And I've carried it all these years. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I told someone, if I unburdened myself. But I haven't. Because to this day, Emily doesn't know. My mom doesn't. No. No one does. And maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Maybe some truths are meant to stay locked away. I look in the mirror now and I see parts of him in me. The way I tilt my head. The way I clench my jaw when I'm angry. But I also see something else. I see the choice. The choice to be better. To break the cycle. To protect the people I love. Not hurt them. And maybe that's the best I can do. Maybe that's enough. So, yeah, my dad and I share a secret. A secret I can never tell anyone. But maybe by telling you this much, I've already said enough.